"You forgot again, didn't you?" I said quietly into the phone, my voice barely masking the hurt that had built up over years of disappointment. "My name is Anita Coleman. I'm 27 years old, and this was the 5th year in a row that my parents had completely forgotten my birthday." While I sat alone in my apartment in Charleston, South Carolina, with a store-bought cupcake and a single candle, my family was probably planning another elaborate celebration for my brother Sebastian's upcoming birthday next month. The pattern was so predictable it had become almost comical, if it weren't so painfully real. "Oh, honey, I'm so sorry," my mother Nancy said, though her voice lacked any real remorse. "We've been so busy with Sebastian's promotion at the marketing firm and helping Olivia get her catering business off the ground. You know how it is." I did know how it was. Sebastian, who was 25, had received a brand new BMW for his last birthday, complete with a surprise party at the country club where 30 of his friends celebrated with champagne and live music. Olivia, my 23-year-old sister, had gotten a $15,000 check to start her dream catering company, along with a weekend spa retreat that our parents called her pre-business stress relief package. Meanwhile, I had spent my birthday working a double shift at the dental office where I was a hygienist, coming home to find not even a text message waiting for me. "I understand," I replied, though understanding and accepting were two very different things. "I just thought maybe this year would be different." "We'll make it up to you, sweetheart. Maybe we can do something next weekend," Nancy promised. The same promise she had made every year for the past 5 years. Next weekend would come and go with radio silence, just like always. By then, Sebastian's birthday planning would consume all of her attention, and I would fade back into the background where I apparently belonged. After hanging up, I stared at the cupcake and realized something profound had shifted inside me. This wasn't just about forgotten birthdays anymore. This was about being invisible in my own family, about watching my siblings receive unconditional support while I struggled alone. But what my family didn't know was that their neglect had taught me something valuable: self-reliance. For the past 3 years, I had been quietly building something they couldn't see, saving every penny and developing a side business that was starting to flourish. They saw me as the forgotten daughter, but I was becoming something much more powerful. I was becoming independent, and soon they would realize just how much they had underestimated me. Growing up in the Coleman family meant learning early that love came with conditions, and I apparently didn't meet them. My father, William, owned a successful accounting firm in downtown Charleston, and my mother, Nancy, worked as a real estate agent for high-end properties. Between them, they earned enough to provide a comfortable lifestyle, but that comfort was never distributed equally among their 3 children. Sebastian had always been the golden child, tall, charismatic, and naturally gifted at everything he touched. He could do no wrong in my parents' eyes. When he wanted to play tennis, they hired a private coach. When he expressed interest in business, they funded his MBA at a prestigious university. When he graduated and landed his first job, they bought him a luxury apartment and co-signed for his BMW. His birthday celebrations were legendary events that the whole extended family attended, complete with professional photography and catered meals. Olivia, as the baby of the family, received a different but equally generous treatment. Her artistic temperament was celebrated and nurtured. They paid for her culinary school, supported her through internships at expensive restaurants, and recently had given her seed money to start her own catering business. Her birthdays were intimate affairs, but no less special, with thoughtfully chosen gifts that often cost more than I made in a month. Then there was me, the middle child who somehow always managed to slip through the cracks. I had learned to make my own birthday cakes by the time I was 12. I worked part-time jobs throughout high school to pay for my own school supplies and clothes. When I graduated from dental hygiene school, I received a card with $20 inside and a note that said, "Congratulations on your achievement." When Sebastian graduated with his MBA, they threw him a party that cost more than my entire education. But their dismissal had taught me something my siblings would never learn: how to stand on my own. While Sebastian relied on family connections to advance his career, and Olivia called our parents every time her business faced a minor setback, I had quietly been building my own empire. 3 years ago, I had started a freelance bookkeeping service for small businesses, working evenings and weekends from my apartment. Word spread quickly about my attention to detail and reasonable rates, and soon I was managing finances for 12 different companies. The money I earned from bookkeeping went straight into savings and investments. I drove a modest used car that I had bought and paid for myself, lived in a small but comfortable apartment, and watched every penny. While my family assumed I was struggling financially because I never asked for money like my siblings did, I was actually building wealth at a pace that would have shocked them. They saw my independence as pride, but it was really survival. When you grow up knowing that help isn't coming, you learn to create your own opportunities. And slowly, quietly, I was creating something that would change everything. The breaking point came 6 months after my forgotten birthday. On a Tuesday morning that started like any other, until my phone rang with devastating news. I was preparing for my first client of the day when my father's voice cut through the line with characteristic bluntness. "Anita, we need to talk about your car," William said without any preamble or explanation. "What about my car?" I asked, walking to my living room window where I could see my reliable Honda Civic parked in its usual spot. I had bought that car 3 years ago with money I had saved from working overtime at the dental office, and it was one of my few possessions that I truly valued. "We've sold it," he stated matter-of-factly, as if he were discussing the weather. "Olivia's catering business is struggling, and she needed an immediate cash infusion to keep the doors open. Your car was the most liquid asset we could access quickly." The words hit me like a physical blow. "You sold my car? The car that I bought and paid for? The car that's in my name?" "Don't be dramatic, Anita. We forged your signature on the title. Olivia's business is more important than your transportation needs right now. You can take the bus to work until you figure out something else." I stood frozen in my apartment, staring out at the empty parking space where my car should have been. They hadn't just sold my property without permission. They had committed fraud by forging my signature. But what stunned me more than the crime was the casual way my father delivered the news, as if my needs were so insignificant that they didn't warrant consideration. "How much did you get for it?" I asked quietly. $18,000. Every penny went to Olivia's business account. She's got a big catering contract coming up, and this will help her fulfill it properly. $18,000. The same amount they had spent on Sebastian's BMW down payment. The same amount they had given Olivia for her original business startup. My car, which represented years of saving and sacrifice, had been reduced to emergency funding for my sister's failing venture. "Anita, are you there?" William's voice sounded impatient, as if my silence was an inconvenience. "I'm here," I said, though I felt like I was floating somewhere above my body, watching this conversation happen to someone else. "Good. And don't make this more complicated than it needs to be. Family helps family, and right now Olivia needs help more than you need a car." After he hung up, I sat in my empty apartment and felt something fundamental shift inside me. They had crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. This wasn't about favoritism anymore. This was about basic respect for my autonomy and property. But as I sat there, processing the shock and betrayal, I realized something else. They had just given me the motivation I needed to execute a plan I had been unconsciously developing for months. It was time to show my family exactly who they had been ignoring all these years. The next few weeks were a carefully orchestrated performance. I took the bus to work each day, letting my family see exactly how much inconvenience their decision had caused me. When Sebastian offered to give me rides occasionally, I accepted with gracious gratitude that masked my growing determination. When Olivia texted me updates about her catering contracts, thanking me for my sacrifice, I responded with supportive messages that revealed nothing about the storm building inside me. But while they saw a struggling sister adapting to difficult circumstances, I was actually executing the most important business plan of my life. During my lunch breaks, I met with real estate agents. In the evenings, I researched properties and reviewed financial documents. On weekends, I drove rental cars to property viewings. always careful to return them before my family might see me with a vehicle they hadn't provided. My bookkeeping business had grown beyond my wildest expectations. What had started as evening side work had evolved into a full-time consulting operation. I now managed the finances for 23 small businesses, and my reputation for accuracy and discretion had led to referrals that kept my calendar booked months in advance. The income from consulting, combined with my dental hygiene salary and aggressive saving habits, had created a financial cushion that my family couldn't have imagined. 3 weeks after they sold my car, I found the perfect property. A stunning lake house in the mountains of North Carolina, 2 hours from Charleston. The house sat on 5 acres of wooded land with 600 feet of private lake frontage. It had 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, a gourmet kitchen, and floor-to-ceiling windows that showcased breathtaking water views. The asking price was $450,000. I made an offer that same day. The negotiations took 2 weeks, during which I continued my daily routine of taking the bus and accepting rides from Sebastian. My family occasionally asked about my transportation situation, and I would sigh and mention that I was saving up for another used car. William would nod approvingly and remind me that helping Olivia had been the right choice for the family. Nancy would suggest that maybe I could find something reliable for under $10,000 if I looked hard enough. Their condescension fueled my excitement about what was coming. They saw me as someone who would struggle to afford a decent used car, while I was actually preparing to close on a property that cost more than Sebastian's BMW and Olivia's business investment combined. The closing took place on a Friday afternoon in April. I sat in the attorney's office, signing documents that transferred ownership of the lake house to me, paid in full with a combination of savings and a small mortgage that my consulting income could easily support. When the final papers were signed and the keys were placed in my hand, I felt a surge of accomplishment that had nothing to do with revenge and everything to do with proving to myself what I was capable of achieving. That weekend, I drove my newly purchased Toyota SUV to the lake house and spent 2 days furnishing it with carefully chosen pieces that reflected my personal style. I set up a home office overlooking the lake where I could work with my consulting clients. I stocked the kitchen with groceries and wine. I arranged the master bedroom with new linens and artwork that made the space feel like home. On Sunday evening, as I sat on the deck watching the sunset paint the lake in brilliant oranges and purples, I pulled out my phone and composed the most important social media post of my life. I selected a photo of the lake view from my deck, added a simple caption, and hit publish. Birthday gift to myself. Within minutes, the notifications started flooding in. Friends from high school, colleagues from work, former classmates from dental hygiene school. Everyone was congratulating me and expressing amazement at the beautiful property. But the responses I was most interested in hadn't arrived yet. I poured myself a glass of wine and waited for my family to see what their forgotten daughter had accomplished. My phone started ringing at 6:30 Monday morning. I was sitting on the lake house deck with my coffee, watching morning mist rise from the water, when William's contact photo appeared on my screen. I let it go to voicemail. 5 minutes later, Nancy called. Then Sebastian. Then Olivia. I silenced the phone and continued enjoying my peaceful morning. By noon, I had 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. The voicemails ranged from confused to demanding to almost frantic. William's first message was typically direct. "Anita, call me immediately. We need to discuss this house situation." Nancy's messages grew increasingly emotional with each attempt. "Sweetheart, please call us back. We're worried about you and need to understand what's happening." Sebastian's texts were a mixture of admiration and concern. "Holy shit, Anita, that house is incredible. How did you afford it? Are you okay financially? Call me back." Olivia's messages started supportive but quickly turned suspicious. "The house looks amazing. I'm so happy for you but also confused about how you could afford something like that when you've been taking the bus to work. Can we talk?" I waited until evening to respond, sending a group text that said simply, "Thank you for your concern. I'm doing very well and will be in touch soon." That message only intensified their calls. By Tuesday morning, The missed calls had reached 31, and Nancy had started calling my workplace. My supervisor at the dental office approached me during lunch with an amused expression. "Anita, your mother has called here 4 times today asking if you're having some kind of mental health crisis. She seems very concerned about a house purchase. I told her you seem perfectly fine to me, but she insisted I should encourage you to call home." I thanked my supervisor for the message and assured her there was no crisis, just family drama that would resolve itself soon. But I knew the pressure was building to dangerous levels. William had left a voicemail that morning with an ultimatum. "Anita, you have until Thursday to call us back and explain this situation, or we're driving up there to find you." Thursday arrived bright and clear. I had spent the week setting up my home office and meeting with 3 new consulting clients via video call. The lake house was perfect for conducting business, quiet, professional, and inspiring. I was reviewing financial reports for a local restaurant when I heard car doors slam in my driveway. Through the window, I watched my entire family emerge from William's Mercedes, my parents looking stern and worried, Sebastian appearing excited but confused, and Olivia glancing around with barely concealed envy. They approached the front door as a united front, probably having planned their strategy during the 2-hour drive. I opened the door before they could knock, greeting them with a calm smile that I knew would unsettle them more than any emotional outburst could. "Hello, everyone. I was wondering when you'd decide to visit." Nancy immediately stepped forward, her face flushed with anxiety and frustration. "Anita, what is going on? How did you buy this house? Are you in some kind of trouble? Are you involved in something illegal?" William pushed past her, scanning the interior of the house with the calculating eye of an accountant. "This property has to be worth at least $400,000. Your salary at the dental office couldn't support this kind of purchase. We need answers." I stepped aside and gestured for them to enter. "Please, come in. I think it's time we had a long overdue conversation about money, family, and respect." I led them through the house slowly, letting them absorb the full scope of what I had accomplished. The open-concept living area with its vaulted ceilings and stone fireplace, the gourmet kitchen with granite countertops and stainless steel appliances, the master suite with its walk-in closet and spa-like bathroom, the home office overlooking the lake where my computer displayed spreadsheets from my consulting business. Sebastian whistled low as we passed through each room. "Anita, this place is incredible. But seriously, how did you swing this?" "Before we get to that," I said, settling into the leather armchair that faced the sofa where my family had arranged themselves, "I want to understand something. You've been calling and texting frantically for 4 days, desperate to reach me. When was the last time before this week that any of you initiated contact with me?" The silence stretched uncomfortably. Olivia shifted on the sofa, looking around the room rather than meeting my eyes. Sebastian stared at his hands. Nancy opened her mouth to speak, then closed it again. "I'll help you out," I continued calmly. "Sebastian, you last texted me 6 weeks ago to ask if I could cover your half of Dad's birthday gift because you were short on cash after buying new golf clubs. Olivia, you called me 3 weeks ago to thank me for the car money and to tell me about your catering contract. Mom, you last called me 8 weeks ago to ask if I could work extra hours at the dental office to help with family finances. Dad, our last conversation was when you called to tell me you'd sold my car." William leaned forward aggressively. "That's enough guilt-tripping, Anita. We're here because we're concerned about how you could afford this house on your salary. Something doesn't add up." "You're absolutely right, Dad. Something doesn't add up." I stood and walked to my home office, returning with a folder that I had prepared for this exact moment. For 3 years, I've been running a bookkeeping and financial consulting business from my apartment. I now manage the finances for 23 small businesses, and my monthly income from consulting alone is more than double my dental hygiene salary. I opened the folder and spread out bank statements, client contracts, and tax returns on the coffee table. I've saved aggressively, invested wisely, and built a business that you never bothered to ask about because you assumed I had nothing worth discussing. Nancy picked up one of the bank statements, her eyes widening as she scanned the numbers. Anita, these balances, you've had this much money for how long? Long enough to help when Olivia needed business funding, if anyone had asked me instead of stealing my car, I replied. Long enough to contribute to Sebastian's birthday celebrations, if anyone had invited me to participate in the planning. Long enough to be treated like a valued member of this family, if anyone had seen me as more than an afterthought. Olivia's voice was small and defensive. We didn't know you had money. You never said anything. I never said anything because no one ever asked me anything, I shot back. For 5 years, you've forgotten my birthday while throwing elaborate parties for Sebastian. You've given Olivia tens of thousands of dollars while I struggled with bus transportation. You've made financial decisions that affected my property without consulting me because you assumed I was too poor and powerless to matter. William's face had turned red. Whether from embarrassment or anger, I couldn't tell. If you had this much money, why didn't you offer to help when we needed it? I looked at him incredulously. When exactly was I supposed to offer? Between being forgotten and having my car stolen? You never asked for my help, Dad. You just took what you wanted and assumed I'd be grateful for whatever scraps of attention you threw my way. The room fell silent, except for the gentle lapping of lake water against the shore outside. My family sat surrounded by the evidence of my success, finally understanding that they had systematically underestimated and dismissed the most financially stable person in the room. I want to show you something else, I said, pulling out my laptop and opening a document I had prepared weeks earlier. This is a detailed record of every family birthday celebration, family dinner invitation, and financial contribution request I've received over the past 5 years. I turned the screen toward them, revealing a spreadsheet with dates, events, and my participation level. Sebastian's birthdays showed elaborate celebrations with guest lists that never included me. Family dinners were documented with notes like, told about dinner day of, after plans were already made, or not informed until after dinner had already happened. Financial requests showed a clear pattern. Sebastian and Olivia receiving significant monetary gifts, while I was never asked to contribute or even informed about family financial decisions. You want to know why I didn't offer to help? I continued, my voice steady but firm. Because you never treated me like family. You treated me like a convenient afterthought who should be grateful for whatever attention you spared. Nancy's face had gone pale as she scrolled through the documentation. Anita, we didn't realize. You didn't realize because you didn't want to realize, I interrupted. It was easier to assume I had nothing to offer than to actually include me in family decisions. It was easier to forget my birthday than to put effort into celebrating me the way you celebrated Sebastian. William stood abruptly, his accountant's mind clearly processing the implications of what he was seeing. This documentation. You've been planning this confrontation for months. I've been protecting myself for years, I corrected. This house isn't revenge, Dad. This house is evidence. Evidence that I don't need your approval or financial support to succeed. Evidence that your assumptions about my capabilities were completely wrong. Evidence that treating me like an outsider in my own family was the biggest mistake you could have made. Sebastian finally spoke up, his voice subdued. Anita, I'm sorry. I never thought about how it looked from your perspective. You never thought about me at all, I replied simply. None of you did. Olivia suddenly became defensive, her voice rising with panic. You're being unfair. We had no way of knowing you were secretly wealthy. If you had told us about your business, things would have been different. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Would they have been different, Olivia? Or would you have just started asking me for money instead of asking Dad? Would Sebastian have invited me to his birthday parties? Or would he have just expected me to help pay for them? That's not fair, Sebastian protested, but his voice lacked conviction. What's not fair is selling someone's car without permission and expecting them to be grateful, I shot back. What's not fair is planning family gatherings and forgetting to invite one of your children. What's not fair is assuming someone has nothing to contribute to the family because they don't ask for handouts. William was studying the financial documents spread across the coffee table, his expression shifting from anger to something that looked almost like respect. Your business income is impressive, Anita. You've built something substantial here. I built it alone, I emphasized. While you were funding Sebastian's lifestyle and Olivia's dreams, I was building my own future. While you were forgetting my birthdays, I was creating financial security. While you were treating me like a burden, I was becoming the most successful person in this room. The truth of that statement settled over them like a weight. Looking around at my family, I saw the exact moment when they realized what they had lost. Not just my financial contributions, which they were clearly calculating in their heads, but my respect, my trust, and my willingness to be treated as less than I was worth. Nancy began to cry softly. We can fix this, Anita. We can do better. No, I said quietly. You can't. Because this isn't about doing better. This is about who you chose to be when you thought I had nothing to offer. And that choice revealed everything I needed to know about how you really see me. I stood and walked to the window overlooking the lake, my back to my family as they sat in stunned silence, finally understanding the full scope of what their favoritism had cost them. William, Nancy, Sebastian, and Olivia faced immediate social consequences when the story of the forgotten birthdays and stolen car spread through their extended family and social circles. Relatives who had wondered about my absence from family gatherings now understood the cruel dynamics at play, leading to uncomfortable questions at family reunions and social events about their parenting choices and treatment of their own daughter. Their reputation in Charleston's tight-knit community suffered when friends learned they had sold my car without permission to fund Olivia's failing business while treating me as invisible, revealing a level of favoritism and financial manipulation that shocked people who had known the family for years. Nancy's real estate business faced whispered criticism when clients learned about the family dynamics, as people questioned the judgment and character of someone who could systematically ignore one of her own children. Sebastian and Olivia lost credibility when their peers realized their privileged lifestyle had been subsidized, while their sister was excluded from the very family that supported them, making their achievements appear hollow and unearned compared to my independent success. As I watched the sunset paint the lake in brilliant colors that first evening alone in my new home, I reflected on the journey that had brought me here, and realized that my family's neglect had ultimately been the greatest gift they could have given me. It had forced me to become entirely self-reliant and shown me that the people who truly matter are those who choose to see and value you for who you are, not those who only notice you when you have something they want.